Welcome to SIIMcast, a podcast brought to you by the Society for Imaging Informatics and Medicine.
Well, welcome to this episode of SIIMcast. This is our annual wrap-up for the season and look ahead at both the annual meeting and next season. And like I do every year, I say, oh my God, I can't believe it's been X number of seasons. And we're moving on to season Y. Again, I can't believe we've been doing this for 6 years and we're moving on to year number 7. Kind of crazy. With me, as always, are my co-hosts, Ali, Mohammed, and Jason. So I'll kick it off by asking you guys, what episode or discussion really stuck out in your mind over this season?
Yeah, it is incredible. Like going to, what is it, season 7? It's like Fresh Prince Bel-Air would have had the new Aunt Viv by that point in time, probably. So and we have new people like myself and all that. So I honestly, and maybe this is just frequency bias or recency bias rather, but the most recent episode I really enjoyed. I unfortunately couldn't be part of that, but that was the one with Les Lucas and Marilyn Bowie. And it went off in a lot of different tangents, and I really enjoyed that. That was kind of the fun part of it. So yeah, that was my favorite so far.
No, that was definitely a good one. You know, another one I really liked was with Woojin and Khan Siddiqui, just all the practical pearls, and got me thinking about a completely different career that you just don't think about early on when you're in the field. So that was worth a few repeat listens, just trying to take notes too. And it sounds like hopefully others have gotten the same practical tips from it.
I'm trying to choose as we speak, browsing up and down the season episodes. It's really hard. Most intriguing for me from wow, I really didn't realize this went on behind the scenes. It was probably the Mercy Ships episode that we had recorded. It really blew me away with the amount of information I got. Episodes I really enjoyed taping. I enjoy pretty much every one of them, but the ones where we get to goof off a little bit was always extra nice. So for that, I think the prize in this case would be a tie with our Between Two Fellow episodes, the two of them. So the first being Don Dennison and Rick Wiggins, and then the other one being Adam Flanders and Chuck Kahn. Those two were the ultimate.
Bidet for the win.
Exactly, Prasad. That's where you coined the term bidet. So before our listeners get too far with their thoughts, you want to remind them what that stands for?
Yes. So bidet is an acronym which stands for belonging, equity, diversity, inclusion in technology. So everyone should be supporting bidet. Everyone should be making use of bidet.
That was a year ago.
The episode that really kind of stuck out, or one of the episodes I like, kind of along the same lines of what Mohammed was saying, was the history of VNA. That was one we were recording longer than any other episode, and we had to cut it in half just because there was so much good information and history that none of us had any idea. And well, I'm happy that kind of is going on to retirement and whatnot. It's sad that all that knowledge that in history just kind of goes with him, you know, like, I mean, not all the knowledge, but you know what I mean? Like, he's such a wealth of knowledge, and, you know, it's good to hear these stories. And, you know, one of the things that we've been trying to do, and you'll notice that throughout the seasons, is we try to get episodes with many of either the SIIM fellows or people that have been at SIIM for a long time to try to tap into their historical knowledge and just their experiences in general. And some of those are some of our favorite episodes. Some of them are the most listened to episodes. And I think all of us recognize the amount of wealth of information that's out there that we just either historically don't know about because it hasn't been passed down yet, or, you know, we weren't there at the time, or just, God, like there's just so much to learn. So I think that's one of the episodes I really enjoyed. The one on the Google Earth for the body, or the quadcorder, that was fun. Les is, you know, he's very dynamic. He's a great guy. I learned a lot from him. So I'm not surprised that that was one that other people enjoyed as well.
It's interesting what you say about the value of the stories, because I think that without the stories, it just becomes facts. And when you hear some of these things, like them talking about the first time ACR and NEMA were having discussions that would build out DICOM. Like that's how the myths of our industry get kind of embodied a bit. So yeah, all that stuff is kind of what makes the episode rich in my thought too. Yeah, that was a good one, the history of the VNA.
Speaking of wealth of knowledge, we've made some great progress on the practical imaging informatics talks. So that series has been coming along really nicely, and looking forward to seeing more of that in the next season. I think we still have a couple more chapters to go, fortunately. So our listeners can look forward to that as well.
Yeah.
I think the nice thing about that series has been it clearly like everyone can read the chapter or whatnot, but talking to the authors and finding out from their points of view why certain things they felt was more important than others, or they can delve deeper into outside the book, because it really is, it's a skeleton of an outline, right? It's just a checklist, right? So we give you the most important kind of factoids, and then you've got to kind of fill everything in as you go. So it's a great starting point. Don't get me wrong. But I like the fact that we can talk to people and see like, okay, well, what's behind this? What are the other pieces of information that are out there? Like talking with Bill Offerman and like finding out more information about not only the topic, but I've never written a book chapter before. So knowing what else is in that process that goes with writing a chapter, it's more than just like writing a paper, and getting that published. It's a different beast in some respects. Yes, there are similarities. Obviously, you're writing something up. You have to have your references, so on and so forth. But papers are kind of like a one-off. A book tends to have more cohesion over the chapters and things like that. So I found that whole series interesting to kind of pick the people's brains about these different aspects of things.
I wonder if people would have felt less stressed about the deadline of the revised book if ChatGPT-4 had been around at the time. As one of the authors of that book, I feel like I might have enjoyed having ChatGPT around at that time.
Let's do a quick poll. How many of you think that people are going to use ChatGPT to do their presentations for them this year at SIIM?
I think a lot will be using it to help their presentations. I think 90%, I would imagine, like a significant amount.
Mohanad, Ali, what do you guys think?
Hard to tell. I actually have tried using it a couple of times. It is useful, but I'm, to be honest, not finding it as useful as I expected it to be. So I'm torn. I would hope that people would use it, because why not? I'll take all the help I can get. But I'm not finding it to be all that useful. I'm one of those people, I should also say, that I'm generally slightly skeptical of AI, even though I use it and embrace it quite a bit in my day-to-day life. But I'm finding the uses for AI, whether ChatGPT or Tesla Autopilot or, all kinds of stuff, to be really of limited use yet.
It's interesting what you say. So with ChatGPT, I've been using it a lot it's like bouncing ideas off of, what do you think a good visual for this text would be? And it will give me back examples in icon based, you can be very specific. I like that. But
do you think it's because we might be asking questions that are too domain specific and not generalized?
What I was going to say was around February, I was thinking it would be fun to do an episode around Black History Month. And I asked ChatGPT to give me some research about radiology and Black history. And it gave me book titles and authors that I cannot find anywhere on the internet. And I connected with someone on LinkedIn and I chatted with them. They didn't know what I was talking about.
What?
Yeah.
I'm kind of torn too, because I started getting results like that where it was hallucinating, right? Whether it's references for a literature review or just not, being able to like handle complex math problems or statistical problems. But then I found out about something called prompt engineering, and that has changed my approach to large language models and ChatGPT. And we should really do an episode on that down the line, just asking the right questions and strategies to actually work through models hallucinating and seeing if we can help them get back on track, because that's totally a thing. And you never really knew it until you start experimenting in a way and iterating prompts and going through model logic and giving some time to think. So maybe that's something to go down.
Well, I mean, that's even applicable to, let's just take a basic web search, right? Like you might think, these keywords or this phrasing, but if you're not getting quite the right words in place, it's going to take you down a different rabbit hole potentially, right? So, same idea. I mean, it's applicable for, lots of different things too. But yeah, that's a good idea. It's interesting. Like, I'm not even sure who we would talk to about that.
We'll see something at the meeting maybe about large
maybe
models, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I just got off of a meeting with SIIM, and they are revising the schedule a bit to include some ChatGPT, LLM related content.
Yeah, I saw something in the prelim itinerary that talked about ChatGPT. So we'll see what more they added. It's not like it's a linguistic issue. So like we wouldn't necessarily talk to a linguist. I don't know. Maybe it is linguistics. Maybe, I don't know. This is an interesting question. Like, even who would we even talk to about how do we improve the questions we ask? It's not like it goes directly to one field of study per se. What do you guys think?
It's interesting because all I'm thinking is how much it opens up the realm of possibility. If you think of like all the no code opportunities, and if you're really good at prompting, you could essentially prompt yourself, and your creativity is the limit here. It's not a matter of the skill. You have access to design the skill if you know how to prompt it correctly.
And it's a career. It's an emerging career, and was it Andrew Ng and others with these deep learning AI courses are offering 1-hour sessions on prompt engineering and learning how to do that. And you never know the kind of opportunities that come up. And I don't know if it's going to stick around until people become better at it overall versus having a specific dedicated prompt engineer role, but we'll see. Maybe someone from outside of medicine as a guest.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
As we talk about the sessions at this coming SIIM, I saw one on there about training the next generation of informaticists.
Bad session. Do not attend that.
What are you talking about? That's going to be a great session.
Attend the session.
It's going to be a great session.
No, it would be great. It will be.
You can ask Prasanth all the questions you want.
Can you expand? So what's your plan of attack for it? What should we expect?
ChatGPT.
Though it'd be interesting to put ChatGPT on a big screen and just ask questions and verify. Yeah. But that's probably a different session.
That would be a different session. No, like basically Ali had this idea about like, well, there's been so much change in informatics specifically over the last few years. Like, how do we prepare the next generation? How do you teach somebody these things? What's your strategy for this? And not only that, but like logistically, how do you make that happen? Right. In a training program, a residency fellowship, whatever, like, how do you get the people that you need? How often do you have lectures? Is it once a week? Is it multiple times a week? Is it just to the informatics trainees, or is it open to everybody else? How do you balance all of these different factors? So, we'll be talking John Burns and Omar
Awan.
Thank you. We'll also be weighing in from their respective institutions as to what they do. So, we'll talk about things in generalities, but also some specifics as to what each of us have done at our respective programs to kind of make things happen. And of course, one of the things that John Burns and I have been working on over this last year, or actually been doing, not working on, is the sponsored by SIIM, the monthly informatics lecture. It's a national lecture where we get people to come and talk on various topics in informatics. And the idea was to reduce redundancy. Like, why have 6 different DICOM lectures, right? Like, it's going to be all the same thing, or HL7, or, pick your evergreen topic. But we've had other people come on more specific topics that may not be covered everywhere. For example, we had, the December one? It was...
we just had one on data sets, right?
The data set one was really cool. That was interesting. Go ahead, Ali, tell everybody about the data set one.
Yeah, so it was this past week, and we sat down with the team from Emory and learned more about the Emory breast imaging data set, the embed data set, but more specifically about how they actually went through the process of not having a data set to having this fully fleshed data set that they're getting ready to share. So the whole ETL process, considerations for de-identification, talking about even topics like bias and making sure that you have a diverse population represented in a data set to make it generalizable. So as someone that, I don't know if y'all know, maybe you do, that I didn't have a significant technical background before finding SIIM and this fantastic community, and data sets conceptually made sense, but it's a very intimidating topic if you think about trying to put one together from scratch. But hearing that lecture really made it concrete, right? Like, here are the steps, and it's not going to be that simple every time, but now you have a framework to build off of and contacts to help guide you through it. There are multiple factors that come into play in terms of education, but also the practical approach in the network. And hopefully we can talk more about that during the session, right? Actually resources, and kind of make it like an open source session where we talk about things like the national lectures, the NICRAD course, and then a set of just ongoing compilations of references, whether it's through Coursera, through RSNA, SIM, ACR, any other place that's offering free content to help direct self-guided learning.
I'm curious what you guys' thoughts are as far as, I think like Omar is, he's a big YouTube guy and he's got his channel. And I guess as social media and these things evolve, how much becomes realistic adaptation to new learners and how much is just a gimmick? Like, how valuable is a YouTube short or like a TikTok video that's supposed to be educational, or does it actually have true value where I can like see this 30-second clip of, something, but I'm going to retain knowledge? I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are.
It depends. I think it can be really helpful because in this day and age, attention spans are really short. And so sometimes all you have is a 30-second window, right? For someone who's listening on a commute or, at least talking about medical trainees based on my background, we listen to videos at 2x, 2 times the speed. So having a short video clip where you hit the right pearls, right? Like our Omer Awan does these MSK radiology videos that are really short to the point. Will showcase, give you the answer, teaching pearl, and that's it. So it can be effective if done well, but you can easily fill it with content that doesn't actually make a point and run out of time. I don't know. Prasad, what do you think?
This opens up a bigger question on some levels about, is this the way we want our society to go, with being very short attention span, it's almost like dopamine based, where it's like want, have, right? Versus we used to have lots of patience for stuff, right? Like yes, good things come to those who wait, who put the time and energy and work in. Like, the four of us did not get to where we are today overnight. Like, we all put the hours in, we all worked hard, so on and so forth. And I get that there's a lot of competing factors in everyone's lives. We're all busy. Like, Jason, Mohamed, you guys have kids. So you've got hockey, you've got this, right? Ali's got call and other stuff that's going on in his life. I've got my 2 cats and everything else going on. So I get there's a time crunch, but the flip side becomes like, do we want to be like boiling everything down to these tiny little snippets? And this kind of also goes back to what we were talking about before, about the richness of the history and all the things that we didn't know about. Because if we boiled all those episodes down into like these bullet points, you lose all those stories and you lose the richness and the understanding of why. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, both in my own life, because I do recognize that when I hear my phone go ding, it's like dopamine hit. Woohoo! I got a notification. And I'm like, okay, I need to back away from that a little bit because, that's just not who I want to be and how I want to live my life. You live your life however you want to. This is what I'm trying to do for me. But does raise some questions about, as instructors, how much do you want to feed into that to some degree? And it's a balance, I think. It can be very useful. I remember Murray Reichler, after he was on the podcast many years ago, he made a suggestion about, I guess there was some golf podcast that he was listening to where it would be like, he had like a 30-second clip, almost like an ad, where it's like, here are 5 things that you can do to improve your golf swing, right? And those were actionable items, right? There was like a nice, like, I do this, I do this, I do this, and I can improve stuff. And yes, those can be very powerful. But the flip side is, if you don't actually know more about golf so that you can understand, like, okay, well, why do you need to lead with your leading elbow and or the roll of the wrist and hand at the certain time? Well, why does that make a difference, right? You actually have to dig into that, and that takes more time and energy. So I think there's going to be a big balance between the two, of having the snippets, but then you've got to go and dig yourself. And if people aren't going to do that, they're just going to know a bunch of facts and not information. You guys see what I'm saying?
I do. And, I'm actually curious how that works in the context of the learning lab. So I know, Mohamed, you're leading one, the Introduction to Fire and DICOM Web learning labs. What do you think about the structure for those. And I think there is value for sure in hands-on experiences, but how much of those sessions get into the nitty-gritty details and some of the foundational core concepts that Prasanth was talking about, like a rich foundational knowledge?
So this particular learning lab is actually probably the exception to the rule as far as learning labs go, because usually SIIM will shuffle these learning labs every year. Every year there'll be completely different ones. This particular one we've actually been running for probably 6 years now, quite successfully. It's the one consistent one that keeps coming back. It's not to say that we don't change things up, but the fundamentals of we're trying to teach people how to use DICOM, OpenFire generally remain. It's actually the first year that I'm myself not leading it. My good friend Bill Wallace is actually taking over this learning lab, and I'm supporting him. He's got some pretty cool ideas for how to frame that introduction in the context of more realistic applications. I can't speak to all the details of what he's trying to do, but I can tell you that I've also attended other people's learning labs, and sometimes it depends on the presenters and the people leading the learning labs. So sometimes you do actually get into the nitty-gritty details. Sometimes you just barely touch some of these things, but you don't get deep into it, just because at the end of the day, realistically speaking, you have 2 hours that people are present there, and not everybody is able to follow these steps. So sometimes you get people struggling behind, and you need to be able to dedicate a little bit of time to help them with troubleshooting and things like that.
Jason, what do you think about that? I mean, you've got, like, you and Mohammed have kids. What are you seeing in that generation, and how do you think, parents move information down to their kids for, various methods, yada, yada, generational information, shall we say, right? How's that affected your ability to teach?
I don't know if that's affected my ability to teach, because I always find that as much as I value myself as an educator, it doesn't seem to work with my children. So, but that just might be just being a parent. But yeah, it is interesting. It's just the shorter attention span, and what can you do about that? What you were saying about golf reminded me of, I recall there was a fight between bloggers and Google, and these were like food bloggers that would put a recipe down, but they would also have a really long story about what led them to that recipe. Well, Google would just scrape out the recipe and provide it as a result. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I do think there is something being lost when you take those stories away, but yeah, it's like there's no fighting against it. You're screaming against the wind.
So this might be just more cultural towards the US. You just came back from Rad Aid. Tell us a little bit about the culture that you were in there in Nepal, right?
Yeah, so went to Nepal for 10 days. They have an Ombra PAX that was put in about 6 months ago. And they have a PAX admin named Binod that's a really great guy, really smart. They have a really strong IT team, and they're at an unfortunate spot in the sense that they have set up the network in a very piecemeal way, but that was one of the missions. There was a lady named Alex Vargas from Moffett Center, and she helped map out the topology and really fix a lot of that. But it was great. We were able to get some new images to the PAX from the ER, and able to, right now they are still paper-based with their reporting workflow. So we went through some knowledge sessions and trying to get them to start using digital signatures within Microsoft Word and attaching that as a digital file in the exam. Because today, the images and the reports have no association. The report is a piece of paper and the images are in the PAX. So anything that could kind of bring that better. And, the classic challenge, I think, is always going to be patient registration and patient identity management. So, how do you reconcile and understand that these are the same patients without, a strong provincial ID or citizen ID or, some sort of biometrics or something like that. So, but it was a great trip, and I recommend anyone that wants to have a really rewarding experience, contact Rad Aid and ask what you can do for them.
Yeah, this is your second trip with Rad Aid. That's awesome that you're getting able to get out there and do that.
Yeah. The perks of being on your own and not having a real employer anymore. So yeah, get to call your shots a bit. So yeah.
So we spoke before the episode on gender impacts, right? And we touched a little bit on non-English based alphabets and things like that. Like, how do you translate non-English words into Romanization, and one person will use a certain spelling, other people use a certain spelling, because you were talking a little bit about like demographics. Is that something that you found that you'd end up with multiple, same person, different spellings of their first or last name, or, did the packs support non-English characters? What was that like?
It was more around, and this was similar to when I went to Ghana. It's common that people don't always know their birth date, so they'll just round to a certain date. So, it's April 1st. And I know I was born around that time period, so we're just going to say April 1st. And that makes it challenging because date of birth tends to be a value that is of strong use when you're trying to correlate patient identity. So if that is no longer of use, and names tend to overlap, and there's no EMR. So this is all the registration is being done by hand. So misspelling is a significant opportunity as well. All those factors, and additionally, if I were to come in today and I register as a new patient, I'm going to get a hospital card. If I come in tomorrow and I forget that card, I'm going to get a new card and I'll have a new number. So there's no concept of, consistency of that patient record. I think even from a billing perspective, it doesn't matter so much as long as the bills are paid. It doesn't matter that it's the same person as much. Yeah. Patient identity is one of those things that I find really interesting. I think that's where ML will be interesting.
What about like just naming findings, right? It's heterogeneous here in the US and it's all in English, but in terms of how we name things, I know that's always been a topic of interest, right? A couple of us were on talks recently about naming anatomic locations and naming findings, and there's quite a bit of that at the meeting too, right? Jason, I think you're leading a session on a single nomenclature for enterprise imaging, but I'm curious to see, right, like if there's a pulmonary embolism, is it called a pulmonary embolism, or are we using Radlex? Are we using SNOMED? Is there something internationally that's consistent, right? Or is it completely different?
That's one of those things where there are, I won't steal the thunder completely, but, SNOMED CT is a very comprehensive ontology, and it could very well achieve cross-specialty semantic interoperability, but it takes adoption. So it's not a technical challenge, it's a human challenge of trying to get someone to do something different and have this change there. However, going to a new dictionary is going to change, or mapping. But if I were to, put a bet against one ontology to rule them all, I do think SNOMED CT would probably be the leader of the pack. How about you, Mahan? You're always busy with your hackathon. Anything going on with the hackathon that you want to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. So we're always trying new things, and this year is no exception. So our hackathon this year is going to be hybrid, which is one cool new thing, meaning that anybody who wants to participate is able to do so fully remotely. Those who are coming to SIIM, though, will be able to enjoy some face-to-face time. So we're actually going to have hackathon headquarters space in the exhibit hall, as we've done in previous years. We'll actually have some activities. There will be one thing within the SIIM reception that is slightly hackathon specific. We'll probably have some mini social gathering type at the hackathon headquarters, so that'll be fun. So that's one thing that's different with the hackathon this year. Another big one that's different with the hackathon this year is that usually in the past, whether it was in person or virtual, the hackathon was about 2.5, 3 days long. And this year, we wanted to emphasize that it's not something that we expect you to drop your daytime job or studies to do, but rather something you could do on the side. And this year, we have 10 days of SIIM hackathon. So this way, if you've only got an hour a day, you've got plenty of time to still be able to hack something together.
Wow. It's like on TNT, 7 days of 007. This is 10 days of hackathon.
Are people allowed to use ChatGPT for you?
So our hackathon is actually one of the most laid back ones you'll see. For one, as you know, it doesn't cost any money to participate in the hackathon. You don't even need to be a member of SIIM. You can still get a free API key even if you're not a member of SIIM. That, of course, doesn't stop us from encouraging people to become SIIM members, if you at all can. And we don't really have any monetary prizes for people to win. It's all sentimental. But yeah, we get a lot of enthusiastic people year
Mhm.
after year with cool ideas, because the goal here is learning, networking, collaborating, and people tend to see the value in that. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that we've been very actively recruiting our mentors, and our very own Dr. Ali Tijani here is going to be one of our domain experts this year.
Woo!
You're being very kind. I'm actually there to learn, if anything, honestly. I got roped in after hearing about all the cool things that happened last year. And, we talked to the team from Cleveland about their blockchain project, which I
Mhm.
still find very fascinating. I'm curious to actually follow up with them and see what happened, if there's any momentum that carried there. And I don't know, Mohammed, do you follow up with the hackathon teams from year to year, or do they reach out to you and tell you how things are going? Or
Some of them keep in touch, some of them don't. The team from Cleveland Clinic is actually one of our oldest standing teams from the SIIM Hackathon. I believe they showed up to either the first or second hackathon, and they've been showing up to everyone consistently. You know how people in the tech space talk about their 20% project? For this particular team from Cleveland Clinic, this is almost like their 20% project. So every year they show up and they try something totally new, totally unrelated to their daytime job, which is really cool, because on one hand, it keeps it entertaining and fun for them. And on the other hand, actually, essentially skill development is what it is. So that particular team will be back again this year. Chances are it's going to be an entirely different idea that they will have. But yeah, I do keep in touch with them. They're a great group of people.
Ali, maybe you should have a SMIT hackathon group, right? So people coming in, and that way they can get more involved with it, right?
we'd love that. I think one of the biggest themes for us is trying to increase engagement for our SMIT members. And thank you for bringing that up, because I needed an excuse to talk more about SMIT. So I'm going to take over. I'm going to shamelessly take over the conversation and talk about what we're doing. So, we started these newsletters last year that summarizes content that we think would be appropriate for a non-technical first time at SIIM attendee level, just to get used to the meeting and get to know this great community, right? Start networking. And so the hackathon is actually one of the events that we always encourage are more, honestly, like Mohammed said, they don't have to be technical, right? And just to even observe or get involved and learn, and then increase participation in coming years. We don't have a dedicated team yet, but we're hoping that now with the hybrid model and being in person, our SMIT members can actually come by, talk to everyone, get to see what's happening, and maybe find some inspiration. But yeah, look out for our SMIT members and, give them a warm welcome. And everyone listening, if you're in the SMIT, we're excited to have you. We've got a lot of exciting things planned for you, from the reception at Stubbs Barbecue to ice cream socials to food vouchers to networking events. And oh my gosh, there's just so much. So hopefully you get some rest, because we're going to keep things busy for you.
It's good. Do you think you're fueling them with more ice cream stuff too, right?
Yeah. No, I was just saying ice cream and knowledge. You can't go wrong.
Nice. Actually, I have a nephew from India who just graduated with a master's in data science, and, helping him trying to find a job, whatnot. And I was like, hey, there's this conference I'm going to in Austin. Here's the information. I don't know if this is what you're looking for, if this is up your alley, but, networking wise, because I've been there for many years, so on and so forth, I happen to know several people who are at all these different institutions. And if they happen to have jobs, I can introduce you directly to them, and I'm thinking like, oh, well, if he shows up, then, I'm definitely going to get him meeting up with Ali with the rest of the SMIT, because he's just graduated. So he's still in that member in training kind of phase, yeah. And then, maybe he might be interested in the hackathon, maybe you can go talk to this person and that person. And there's so many different avenues and so many different ways to get involved and, see if what he's interested in, and, ultimately, hopefully he can find a job. But at the very least, making these connections, it's incredible, like being able to be part of these things, and the connections just last over the years, and being able to do more and more as time progresses. So I don't know if he's going to be there or not. I haven't talked to him in a few weeks because he just graduated. So he's been a bit busy. My uncle actually was able to make it from India. He's been trying to get a visa literally for the past 30 years to come to the States. Like, he couldn't make it to my sister's wedding. He couldn't make it he was part of like the Rotary International. he couldn't get a visa for that. And finally he was able to. So it's like, okay, you're going to be here. He's going to stay here for a couple months. He's touring the entire country, so I didn't want to bother him while he's spending time with his grandfather, touring around, so on and so forth. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I think it'll be a great opportunity one way or the other. Even if he doesn't get a job out of it, like the connections and things like that. And so, but, as much as we do talk about a lot of, how great the hackathon is and the amazing ideas and the projects that come out of it and all these networking things. But, in addition to like supporting Rad Aid, SIIM also does a lot of philanthropy work too, right? It's not just people's time, but also, money that goes towards things. It's not just like winning a prize to come out and pay for, members in training or other people to come to the conference, but there's many other things that SIIM does philanthropy-wise.
Awesome segue, Prasant. So SIIM has actually recently formed a philanthropy committee that is tasked with trying to raise more funds so SIIM can actually increase its philanthropic efforts as far as, paying for new informaticists to travel to SIIM, sponsoring Rad Aid projects and things like that. I have to give you a full disclosure, though. Both Ali and I are actually members of that newly formed philanthropy committee, which is headed by Dr. Mark Coley. So we've actually been hard at work planning a number of events for SIIM23. Ali, you want to summarize? You're more involved in this than I am.
I don't know what you're talking about. We're all equally involved. It's
because you're baby-faced.
Is that why?
You're the young, fresh member.
Okay, let me give you a quick summary then, right? So the big event that we're hoping to host this year, and oh my gosh, it's been such a whirlwind, has been the SIIM Fund silent auction and happy hour. So you do have to get tickets, but the tickets go to a good cause because every contribution supports the SIIM Fund, and that supports our trainees, our global outreach initiatives, and so on. But we have a silent auction. So there's a platform called Better World where we're offering all kinds of items, and both tangible, but also intangible, things like time with experts. And if you want to donate, you can also contribute to some of the scholarships and some of these other endeavors. So, we're excited to see how things pan out. It's been fun getting to know the team more. It's been exciting to think about the possibilities. I think it'll be good to see everyone in person and get an idea of how we can scale things for next year, because I think it's only going to get bigger. I don't know, Mohammed, what do you think?
I think so. I think the future is going to be very interesting for the philanthropy committee because it's new. We're kind of just feeling out our way right now. We're already seeing very encouraging results. Only time will tell how successful this is going to be, and then that will actually set precedents for upcoming years of things that we try and things that we do. But yeah, it's very, very exciting. We've got so many cool ideas and tremendous support for the SIIM community so far. We've kind of been dipping our toes into the waters, and some of us have been posting on social media to get feelers out there. And yeah, it's great support so far. So it's exciting to see that.
And they got autographed copies of the Practical Imaging Informatics textbook as
that's cool,
as auction items. Yeah, so we'll have those in case you're interested and you're out there listening. Some of our chapter authors have signed them.
Wait, so Jason, do you have a book that's up for grabs?
I have not signed anything myself.
Oh, because I want to get that for my bookshelf, honestly. Like, how cool is that?
You know what I'll do? I'll bring a signed Tim Hortons cup for you at SIIM. So we can put it up for bid.
All right. That'd be awesome, eh?
No due to boot it.
Yeah. No, that is really cool.
I was about to joke that you're going to sign it with the word sorry.
One thing I could see about this, like bidding on time with somebody, I could see this particularly with certain other informaticists that are at my current institution that have the FSIM title that I will not specifically name. They might turn it into a popularity contest because, I call him Lord for a reason. He is very knowledgeable. He is my mentor, so on and so forth. But I could see him against, somebody like, Don or somebody like, haha, I got more money for my time than you did, right? But they know each other for years and it's fun. It's all for a good cause anyways.
It's a healthy competition, I think.
Yeah. It was kind of like when we had the game nights, right?
You had game nights for the podcast or for
Oh, no. At SIIM, Arjun and I were co-chair for the, what was it, Content and Engagement Committee. And part of that, content was podcasts and other stuff. But the engagement part was, how do we get people engaging more, both at the annual meeting and off cycle? And one of the things we thought about was like, hey, how about we have some game nights, like minute to win it type games, right? And then some prizes and stuff like that, just to get people interacting with each other and talking a little bit and a little healthy competition sort of stuff. Yeah, it's been a few years since we've done that. Also, the committee got absorbed into other stuff just because. But you could talk with Lindsay about it. Lindsay Shea, she was on that committee, and yeah, she did a great job pulling a lot of stuff together.
Maybe we can bring it back next time. I don't know if it's probably too late for this year, but that sounds like a fun event to bring back.
That would be a great thing for Smith to do. Woohoo!
We have a full plate. We'll consider it.
Oh, there's always more and more stuff, huh? As always, it's great to sit and chat with you guys without a specific agenda and kind of kick stuff around. But obviously, we all have things going on in life. But, I guess in closing or wrapping things up, winding it down, are there any specific sessions that you guys are looking forward to this year, or even like new podcast ideas or episodes that you have been thinking about that you want to see happen, or, any other interesting things that might be going on in your lives?
An idea that I had was when I was out there in Nepal and leading up to that, I was doing some work outside and I using a lot of like free tools. I mean, this is right up Mahana's ears are perking up, but yeah, it's all open source stuff. And there's Smart HL7 is an incredibly awesome tool that this guy put out for the community. And I'd love to have him on the podcast. And I was thinking about the DVTK guys as well. It'd be interesting if we could get a hold of them. It'd be fun to have them on there.
Well, that could easily form into an open source series because, there's an endless list of cool open source projects in imaging. These people are always fun to talk to. So count me in for that one.
Sounds good.
I can't pick. I'm actually actively browsing the program right now and trying to see if there's a single one. Honestly, it's tough, but I'll pick several. It'll be the series of like soft skill sessions. So there's one called Throwing Strikes with Your Elevator Pitch. It's not hardcore informatics, right? Like imaging informatics that we think about, but I think those skills are so important. And I don't know, I've had to go out of my way to find sessions about this on my day job, if it's even available. So to be able to get that in person at SIIM, I'll take it.
I'm kind of interested in some of the sessions, learning from some of the other ologies, or learning from our colleagues in other ologies, I should say, trying not to make the other, if you will. There's one session about data in pathology and learning from them about how they do their data structures and stuff like that. I think that could be really useful in trying to optimize how we do data. It's going to be a lot smaller files, of course, but nonetheless, optimizing and learning from other people and like their mistakes, whatnot. I think that'll be good. And Ali, I think it's interesting that, you're having a hard time finding all this stuff on soft skills and whatnot. I think many times by calling it soft skills, we downplay it. And the importance is so immense. So if you look into anything about emotional intelligence, they've actually quantified an amount of money that if you have higher emotional intelligence, you will make more per paycheck. Like they are actually able to quantify the value of it. That's huge. Many times you can't, and they were actually able to do it. And that speaks to how important that is. It's something like $1,200 per paycheck more if you have higher EI quotient. Yeah, like you said, we've kind of focused on imaging informatics, the hard drives and this and that. But I think we should start calling them human skills, not soft skills, because we all have to interact with each other. We all have to talk to each other. And that's really important. And how do you do that? Especially in ages where everyone's like texting and things like that. Not to wax poetically, but I wonder how future generations are going to be able to actually do face-to-face. Like how are kids in a generation or two actually going to have relationships when you actually have to sit in front of each other at a dinner table or, over candlelight dinner, right? Go on a date when up till then, all they had done was text back and forth and like things are just going to fall apart. I can only imagine how this is, right? In Jason, you're laughing, but it's true, right? Like,
yeah, it's just, you sound like a Luddite almost. Just like, I know you're not, but it
there are consequences, right? And yes, I don't have a Twitter handle. I am probably the Luddite of the informatics world. I'll take that title. As long as you take AI standard czar. Booyah.
Yes,
that's what I
sure.
love. So awesome. Yeah. Well, guys, it's been an amazing year, amazing run. Thank you all for all your hard work. I appreciate everything that you guys all bring to this, and like your questions, for the work that we all do in the background to make sure that the episodes go smoothly, particularly like episodes where like I don't know as much about, but Jason or Lee or Mohamed know. They fill in the questions so that the rest of us look smarter, and vice versa. I appreciate that, and appreciate all the stuff that we're doing to making this work. So thank you all for keeping this podcast going after 6 years, and I can't believe we're going to 7. It's just crazy.
It's, I think, a pleasure. If I can speak on Jason and Ali's behalf here, I think it's an absolute pleasure being part of this team. I learn from you guys every day, and I just enjoy doing it, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I'll echo it. Beautifully said. It's selfish in a way. I get to talk to you all, have fun, and learn. So why not?
What other opportunity do we get to, we speak with luminaries and ask them one-on-one questions like this? It's pretty cool.
Yeah. It has been an amazing opportunity to learn from, there's so many people in our field. It's crazy that we're actually given this chance. So, and thank you to SIIM, of course. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for SIIM keeping things rolling and bankrolling us and helping us do what we do. Also, like to thank our audio sorcerer. He's not a wizard. He's a sorcerer. Randall makes us sound way better than we actually are. And we really greatly appreciate the work he does. Always want to thank our guests and, of course, our listeners. Please find us at the annual conference. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, episode ideas. Many, like Jason, Mohamed, like these guys started in on the podcast because they liked what we were doing and they joined up. Arjun and I, since we started this many moons ago, and he actually has been working in the back end. Even after he left, he graciously took up the mantle of taking care of some of the back end stuff. So thank you to him. If other people are interested, please come talk to us. It's always great to hear from people that like what we're doing and how we can improve and whatnot. Gents, please, anything else you'd like to add? No, and no.
I'm looking forward to the season. I'm excited to see what topics we come across, the people we meet, and how we continue to grow. So looking forward to it.
Oh, one last thing. If people would like to buy us beers at the annual meeting, we're also open to that too.
If they want us to plug something for that beer, no.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks, gents. It's been a great season. Looking forward to the next one. See you all at the annual meeting, and we will all have drinks together, as always.
See you there.
SIIMcast has been brought to you by the Society of Imaging Informatics in Medicine. Please visit our website at siim.org for more information and educational content, including webinars and an archive of prior episodes. Please follow us on Twitter at SIIM_tweets. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support.